Welcome to the SNN Network Summer Virtual Event. We are pleased to introduce the next presenter for today's event, Seth Gray, President and Chief Executive Officer of Lightbridge Corporation. Seth, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here at the SNN Network Summer Virtual Event. Always a pleasure to be with SNN. I'm the President and CEO of Lightbridge Corporation, LTBR, on the NASDAQ. We're one of the only pure-play, publicly traded nuclear companies, and we're developing advanced nuclear fuel technology that will allow today's existing reactors and new ones that will be built to really have positive impact to prevent climate change, to produce massive amounts of clean power very safely using this advanced technology. And with the massive amounts of power that can be produced by nuclear reactors, large and small reactors, that can really help move the needle on clean energy generation as we're coming up on the IPCC dates on climate change. I will call your attention on slide 2 to our safe harbor statement. And going on, I'll just say you could see this deck also on our website. If you want to look at any of these slides more in depth, and we're always available to answer questions as well. On this slide, you could see a photo of some of the Lightbridge fuel rods. And this is a very high technology product that's very different from the current fuel used in reactors. And this fuel can be retrofitted into the current reactors, replacing the fuel in them without change to the reactors, and bring all the benefits of our technology. The current fuel has these pellets of uranium stacked up inside a tube. Our fuel are metallic rods, one solid piece of metal, with several zones within the metal with different materials produced in a very advanced way. And this fuel runs 1,000 degrees Celsius over 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit cooler in the reactor than the current fuels, which is one of the reasons it brings such tremendous safety advantages to the reactor, producing massive amounts of carbon-free energy. There are several key drivers for growth. I'll mention the second one on this slide is there's a lot of legislation that's gone through Congress recently, and more that is going through on a bipartisan way, bringing non-dilutive funding to advance nuclear technology, and Lightbridge is a recipient of these funds, and we expect that to grow more in the future as we're demonstrating this technology with the support of the U.S. government. The bottom of this slide talks about our patents. We announced our new Canadian patent earlier this week. We are now patented in every major nuclear market in the world, including the United States, European Union, China, Russia, and many, many other countries with well over 100 issued patents. And to talk about the fuel itself for a bit and the technology around the fuel, you saw those rods before. Now here's a photograph of the rods put together into a bundle called a fuel assembly that goes into the core of the reactor. And this assembly is about 1 foot across by about 12 feet long when it's commercial length, and about 200 of these will be standing up underwater in the core of a large reactor. If you follow nuclear, you might have heard the term HALEU, or high assay low enriched uranium. This fuel will bring HALEU and its benefits to the current reactors, allowing them to produce more power than they currently do and run longer before it needs to be refueled, resulting in fewer days the reactor is shut down for refueling, and bring very significant safety and economic upgrades to the reactor and a quicker ramp rate, meaning power down and power up very fast. For the first time, really having a fuel technology that would allow nuclear to load follow with renewables, just surge down or up in power as the renewables come on or off, as the sun shines, the wind blows, etc. On this slide that's coming up here, you can see a cross-section of one of our fuel rods that's actually been produced and tested, showing some of the zones within this rod. And Lightbridge has invented and patented both the design of the nuclear fuel itself and the manufacturing methods of the fuel. And we have several updates in those areas that I'll mention. On this slide, you could see some of the tremendous temperature difference down the center line of the fuel rod, and on the right side, some quotes that are currently on the website of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The U.S. NRC is the world's most respected nuclear regulatory body, and you might have heard, for example, in China in the last few weeks, they had some fuel rods that cracked in a reactor, that somehow broke in a reactor and are leaking radiation, and they're shutting down that reactor. You can see in the second bullet on the right side here, and the quote from the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, it says, "Complete retention of fission products means no burst release of those products upon cladding failure." The cladding is the fuel rod that holds the pellets with current fuel, and basically the NRC is saying that this wouldn't happen with Lightbridge fuel. This is one of the benefits that Lightbridge brings. So here you can see a schematic of what the fuel rod looks like with some of the benefits, and these are all metallurgically bonded together, which creates a very robust and strong structure within the rod, but also, more importantly, very good thermal conductivity, heat transfer all across and up and down the rod in ways the current fuel just can't do, bringing many of the benefits, including that there's no gas buildup, there's no space for gas to build up in this rod and escape, like what happened in those rods in China in the last few weeks. So we talked a bit about our patent portfolio, and this is a very important point to Lightbridge, because these patents prevent competition. These patents give us a legal monopoly in both the production methods and the design of our fuel, and it's this intellectual property that in the end is the most important asset of our company. We recently demonstrated producing rods of the length that will be used in small modular reactors, which are these smaller, cheaper to build reactors that are coming. You can see on this slide some billets that were used in this production. We used actual nuclear grade zirconium cladding. We used actual nuclear grade zirconium in what's called the displacer down the center line of our rods. And we used surrogate materials for uranium that behaves like uranium for the purposes of these tests. And this production went very well, and we'll be putting out some more information on this in the coming months. We've also very recently been awarded our second GAIN voucher funding grant by the Department of Energy from the U.S. government. GAIN is the Gateway for Advanced Innovation in Nuclear, a program at DOE, the Department of Energy, that is now funding work we're doing at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory in Washington State, demonstrating key aspects of our manufacturing process. And this overlaps with our first GAIN voucher we're also still operating under at Idaho National Laboratory, designing an experiment where we will produce these nuclear fuel samples with high assay low enriched uranium in them, and then put them into the advanced test reactor for testing at Idaho National Lab. We announced the concept of this advanced nuclear fuel in 2010 and have been moving along ever since, advancing this at a very good pace, leading up to what you'll see on the right side of the slide is next year fabrication, manufacturing these fuel samples with the high assay low enriched uranium in them and getting them in the reactor in early 23. So this is at a quite an advanced stage. And just to touch on some of the opportunities for Lightbridge, so we've been designing the fuel for the large existing reactors around the world, over 400 of them. But we also see these large numbers of small modular reactors coming that are in design and licensing phases now that could benefit from the Lightbridge fuel. So as the slide says, Lightbridge is going where the industry is heading. And this fuel that will allow the small modular reactors to generate more power, which will lower the cost per unit of electricity produced by the reactors and lower electric bills, allow the small modular reactors to pair on grids with renewables, ramping up and down in power as the renewables come on and off in power, replacing fossil fuel plants, including coal plants and natural gas plants, with these small modular reactors with Lightbridge fuel in them. So we think this will be a coming very large market for Lightbridge that really wasn't in the works when we first started designing the fuel, but brings a much larger market to us. The small modular reactors can be built in some places that the big reactors just can't be built. The site doesn't have the cooling water, or the town doesn't need that much energy. There are so many reasons why these small modular reactors can fit in many places that nuclear previously would not have been coming to, and brings new markets to Lightbridge. These reactors, in addition to adding to our market, they'll really help the economics of where the reactors come to and help save jobs and help these communities, help these areas, bring in good, high-paying jobs and transferable jobs from coal plants. And a logical site for them will be sites that currently have coal plants. Those sites will have some cooling water nearby. They have an electrical switchyard, a connection to the electric grid. They have the transmission lines already in place. And for some of these small modular reactors, they might even be able to use the equipment in the coal plant, like the turbine, and just repower it from the new reactor. In addition to allowing the small modular reactors to ramp up and down in power very quickly, pairing with renewables on the grid, we could also bring new missions to nuclear. So one of the missions described on the bottom of this slide is the energy from the reactor can be used to power electrolysis to separate hydrogen from oxygen from water, producing pure hydrogen, which can be used as the basis for zero-carbon liquid fuels that can power hard-to-decarbonize areas like aviation fuel and shipping, and also for fuel cells, for heavy trucks, for trains, for steel production, for cement production. And this can really help with decarbonizing many sectors across the economy to meet carbon goals here and around the world. And here are some numbers for a large reactor, just how much money Lightbridge can save the reactor, from increasing the electricity production, from shortening the amount of time that the refueling needs by the reactor fuel lasting longer in the reactors, and by not having to pay for as many outages to refuel the reactors. And these numbers don't even include added economic benefits from carbon credits that are coming some places in the world, or for some utilities that need to buy replacement power when their reactors are shut down to refuel. So these Lightbridge fuels and reactors will bring many, many benefits to the utilities that own and operate the reactors. Politically, And Washington, D.C. is where our company is. We're in Reston, Virginia, just outside D.C., and working closely with the government. And we're leveraging bipartisan support for advanced nuclear. And this is an area where you're seeing growing budgets, one of the few areas with really strong Democratic and Republican support, very clean handoff from the Trump administration to the Biden administration with continuing programs. So this first gain voucher was granted during the Trump administration, where we're working with Idaho National Laboratory under this $845,000 project, where 3/4 of it is paid in cash by the Department of Energy. The other quarter is provided in kind by Lightbridge engineers working on the project. And this is where we're designing the fuel for the experiment for irradiating it in the Advanced Test Reactor in Idaho, the world's largest test reactor. As it says on the top right, the Department of Energy says that when it gives these grants, any award over $500,000 is in cases with a clear need and involving a truly exceptional technology or innovation. And we're very proud to see the Lightbridge nuclear fuel technology included in that. And now, under the Biden administration, we have a second gain voucher overlapping with the time with the first gain voucher. This one at Pacific Northwest National Lab in Washington State, $663,000, with 3/4 of it paid by DOE. And this is demonstrating key processes used in the manufacture of our fuel. This robust bipartisan support for nuclear is manifest in many ways in the support the government is bringing for many aspects that benefit Lightbridge fuel. There are currently 37 bills relating to nuclear power under consideration in the Congress, introduced and supported by people of both parties. And right now we're seeing something of a great power competition among the United States, China, and Russia in nuclear power globally. And if a company is not on one of those teams with one of those governments, it's not getting nearly as many resources and use of facilities, et cetera, as it could. We're clearly and obviously on the American team, working closely with the U.S. government. And the U.S. government wants to support advanced nuclear technology to meet U.S. strategic needs around the world, including bringing clean, carbon-free energy, having those jobs in America, having that revenue come to America. But also, there are a lot of strategic benefits to deploying nuclear power. You have a say in many, many important issues relating to non-proliferation and other key issues in the countries deploying nuclear reactors, and it's important to the U.S. government that U.S. companies win these contracts. And I think that's part of the reason we're seeing support for Lightbridge fuel, that there's a growing belief in government that our technology can help do that. That's certainly what we believe. Getting toward the end of the presentation here, a strong financial position by the company, a lot more than a year of cash on the balance sheet. We recently were added to the Russell MicroCap Index, which is bringing a little more interest into the stock. We're always available to be reached at ir@ltbridge.com. And with that, we could move into the Q&A session for the next 10 minutes, and look forward to any questions and comments you have. And any time after this, we'll look forward to hearing from you as well. So I see the first question here is from Bobby Kraft, and it says, what would you say is the primary external catalyst that you think would be a major inflection point for LTBR? And I'd say that the major external one does relate to the U.S. government. and I'd say sort of a next U.S. government grant in a stepped-up amount of dollars, in a stepped-up way of supporting and analyzing the technology. That would bring non-dilutive funding even more into the project, which investors like to see, but also investors are limited in their ability to evaluate and advance nuclear fuel technology, so having the U.S. government do that for them as an external catalyst, as an external independent evaluator would be very good. Then we also have a question here from Shelley Crass that says, is it correct to say that the market is catching up to your technology? Can Lightbridge produce enough for future demand? And I'd say it is correct to say Lightbridge is more and more being brought into major industry events, major government events, major energy events. We're happy to be invited to today's conference. There are 4 major nuclear utilities that collectively generate half the nuclear power in the United States, all Fortune 500 companies, Exelon, which is a Fortune 100 company, plus Duke, Dominion, and Southern Company, that are all advising Lightbridge. They comprise our Nuclear Utility Fuel Advisory Board, and their heads of nuclear fuel of those utilities are advising us to make sure that what we're developing is what the market will need. And in terms of producing enough fuel, on an extruded fuel, these rods can be produced very quickly on machinery that is not very expensive using our proprietary technology. We also can license the technology to other companies here and around the world to produce, so we think there will be a very quick ability to ramp up as needed to meet market needs. Look forward to any next questions here. Just hold on a second.
Seth, I actually have a question that just came in. Has the Biden administration bought into pursuing advanced nuclear?
I would say yes, that the Biden administration and the officials we're in direct contact with, and through the Nuclear Energy Institute and other organizations that we're involved with, very much see nuclear as a key to meeting clean energy goals, and really that it's not possible to meet climate goals without an increase in nuclear as part of the diversified energy mix. We're seeing increased funding from the Biden administration for advanced nuclear programs and personal involvement of very senior administration officials. So I'd say yes, we're very, very happy to see that and to work with them.
Do you anticipate any additional funding opportunities from the federal government?
We do. We are performing under these 2 GAIN vouchers from the Department of Energy right now. We'll finish the first one later this year. We'll finish the second one next year. We expect to apply for more before the second one finishes. And we believe performing well under these 2 and bringing excellent results will help to bring in, a third and then beyond that grant and growing support from the government.
Okay, this one that just came in. Have you met with any nuclear utilities about buying Lightbridge fuel?
We meet with nuclear utilities all the time, and in fact, we have this board of 4 that formally advise us, and we talk with utilities around the world. So yes, we've talked with utilities about buying Lightbridge fuel, and they're certainly helping us to make sure that what we're developing is something that would be usable in their existing reactors and reactors that they're planning to use in the future, and really to learn what their needs are, what their problems are. And it was talking to utilities and finding out the need to lower the cost of electricity generated by reactors to compete with falling natural gas prices, to meet safety concerns of some customers around the world and other countries, to meet some proliferation concerns with advantages that Lightbridge fuel brings. So we definitely talk to utilities, about buying Lightbridge fuel.
And speaking about that, what is the pathway you see to actually selling Lightbridge fuel, and what's left that needs to be done?
Right. Well, we're definitely well along that pathway. And under our nuclear quality assurance program, we need to bring the data that both the nuclear industry and the government will accept. And in the government, that's principally the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission and other nuclear regulatory authorities around the world that will accept the data we're producing and license, give us approvals based on that information. And in the industry, it's the companies in the supply chain that will accept the data, will accept the licensing, and help us produce the fuel, but also principally then the utilities that would, even after the NRC approves it and licenses it, have their own criteria for what they use in their own reactors, and that's why we work closely with utilities. So I'd say that we are working with all of these entities. We have people in the company who have gone through all these stages and are very sophisticated in managing this work, and we're well along that path.
And then would you consider Lightbridge as a clean tech company, and for that matter, nuclear as a clean energy industry?
Yes, Lightbridge is definitely a clean tech company, and nuclear is definitely a clean energy industry. And with Lightbridge fuel addressing concerns that people have had about nuclear, it really can help nuclear grow and help other people accept nuclear as a clean tech industry. I think in clean tech tracks at conferences and within investment bank, clean tech analysts sometimes aren't sure whether to accept nuclear. They'll accept wind, solar, hydro, other technologies. But we definitely regard nuclear as clean energy, zero carbon energy, and with this technology that we're bringing, we think many more people can start to see it that way too.
And I think that's all the questions we have.
Okay, that's good, because I have a one-on-one meeting in 90 seconds. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate this.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the Lightbridge Corporation presentation. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect.